All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It's great to be back with you. Normally, we get together for these morning Zooms, Mondays through Fridays at 8 o'clock Central. On occasion, there'll be conflict. So, like last week, several of you and me, so several of us, were in Houston, Texas at a big creditors' rights conference. It was held at a beautiful facility over on the west side of Houston, and we had the opportunity to interact with about 100 different debt collection attorneys and learn some of the best strategies, some of the most aggressive strategies to help our clients, your clients, our clients liquidate the AR. So anyway, apologize for missing Thursday and Friday of last week. It's great to be back today, and we're here most weekday mornings. So for those of you that are new, on the screen, you'll see 509pacific.org, our nonprofit website. That's the website in the background. And if you're not currently a distribution partner but would like to become one, it's free and easy. And we're going to talk about actually today 4 different roles. So part of what we took away from our time with the large group of attorneys is a few tweaks that we need to make to better position ourselves for our continued growth. About a week ago, we rolled out our Sweet Pay program. The Sweet Pay has been amazingly successful. In the first week, we had almost 500 clients enroll in the Sweet Pay. That's not my goal today to go back and revisit that. But the point is, things are going well. We're growing quickly. And so today what we want to do is to break out into 4 different roles. So if you have an interest in helping others improve their financial literacy and or increase access to capital, instead of just saying there's one role, we realize different people are more suited for different roles. So that's what we're going to go through today. And I did email everyone this morning a breakdown of those roles, but we'll go through those. But before we do that, we always like to make sure that you're open for business because it's free, it's easy to be a grant coordinator, which is shown on the screen, same thing as being a reseller. Doesn't cost you anything, no contract to sign, help people start earning income. Does anyone need assistance before we get into our main topic today? Does anyone need help getting open for business? Okay, I think we're okay, and that's good because it's very simple. Just go to 509pacific.org, fill out this little form here, and then we're able to send to you the implementation email. We'll text you to make sure you received it because I know emails can get lost. And then if you're interested in being a team leader, you will refer other grant coordinators right here, and they'll just simply mention your name here in this box, and that way we can manually put them in so you earn overrides. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our topic today, which is understanding the 4 roles. So this is new information. We're not taking anything away from anyone, but based upon our time with the attorneys, nearly 100 attorneys that we spent, about 48 hours with, we've got some great insight. Many of them serve as advisors to us. So with that, we're going to kind of expand the roles. So let's go through that today. Before we worry about the roles, though, it's very important to understand what it is that we do, right? So there's a lot of people out there that want money, that need money to start or grow a business. But what they're often missing is they often don't have a fundable business. So this first sentence is crazy important, right? And it's accurate, it's true. The key to getting business funding is to have a fundable business. Now, the problem that you and I have is most people don't even know what it means to have a fundable business. So not only do they not have a fundable business, they don't even know that they don't have a fundable business. And you'll see this, right? As soon as you're active out talking to prospective grant participants, meaning prospects for the Shelf Corp, you can ask them, hey, do you have a business already? And they'll often say yes, real proudly. And then you ask, is it fundable? And usually they'll right off say yes. And then you start asking some probing questions, some consultative, some analytical questions, and quickly you realize it's not fundable, which is bad for them, good for us, good for you helping them with the Shelf Corp, but they just don't know. No one's out teaching what you and I are teaching about. The key to getting business funding is to have a fundable business. And so as a 501c3, which 509 Pacific is, stated here, 501c3 nonprofit, we applied for a grant, we received a grant, and so essentially what we're doing is providing a free Shelf Corp to each entrepreneur, each grant participant. Lost my screen there, didn't I? All right, so let's scroll down. And so while this is just a brief summary, we've had other trainings where we went into more detail what's included in the Shelf Corp program. But first of all, there's no out-of-pocket cost. So instead of talking to prospects and saying, hey, we can help you have a fundable business, but you got to spend some money up front, instead of that, our program is designed to get them into a shelf corporation with no out-of-pocket cost, with approved credit. Then they get the Shelf Corp, then we use the Shelf Corp for their funding purposes, and then the grant reimburses them back. So in the end, it's free. The nice thing is, as long as they have approved credit, they actually have no out-of-pocket costs. Now, sometimes we'll run into people that don't have approved credit, and that's where the Sweet Pay came in that I mentioned. So we have some trainings, and I'll show you how to access the past trainings, but we had some detailed trainings on Sweet Pay. That's not our point today, but we can help anyone now, regardless of credit worthiness. As far as timeline, so typically people will ask you two questions. How much does it cost to get a Shelf Corp? And the answer is no out-of-pocket cost with approved credit. And then they're going to, second question, they're going to follow, how long does it take, right? Because if it doesn't happen today, it must be a scam. It must happen within 3 minutes, or this is fake. Well, that's too good to be true. But we actually need about a week, 7 days, to get all the paperwork in their name, because we're getting the corporate entity in their name at the federal level, at the state level, in the business plan, putting together their financial projections, their bylaws. There's work that has to be done. And again, if they're not quite as sophisticated, they'll think, oh, it should be done in 7 minutes. But the truth, 7 days is a very timely turnaround. And then once we get to that 7th day, they should have their Shelf Corp, and we should be ready to start using it to access funding and financing. I don't know why I keep clicking off on that. Sorry. The third question they'll typically ask you. So the first one is, well, what's the cost? And the answer is nothing out of pocket with approved credit. Second is, how long does it take? It takes 7 days for us to deliver the Shelf Corp to you, and then we can immediately start using your Shelf Corp for funding, for financing. And then they'll ask, well, how much can I get? That'll often be their third question. Well, really, there's no maximum. And some people misread this, and that's why I even capitalize. The minimum, and we put this in writing, and that's part of what, let's go back to that legal event many of us went to last week, Thursday and Friday. So there's a whole bunch of speakers on Thursday and Friday. Thursday evening, we had the happy hour, and that's where we were asked to present our business model, because it's a very innovative business model. So Thursday evening, we had the chance to present, and frankly, not all the attorneys went to the happy hour, but most. So nearly 100 attorneys, we were able to present what we do, how we do it. We went through our agreements and asked for their feedback. And the end result was, I think, right about 60 of those 100 attorneys signed up to be resellers, to be grant coordinators, because not only did they agree that our program is legal, it's ethical, it's effective, it's needed, but also, frankly, what you and I do is more lucrative than what most attorneys make. The money that you make as a reseller, as a grant coordinator, is more income than most of those attorneys make after going to law school. But going back to this, so we promise a minimum of 100,000 in business funding. We can certainly go after more. That's not a problem. So this is not a maximum, but people care about, what's it going to cost me out of pocket? 0. How long is it going to take? 7 days. How much can I get? At least 100,000. Some of you will say like up to 100,000. That's not true, right? That's not what it says, and that's not what our agreement says. It's a minimum of 100,000. All right, and so then some people again, they're just not as sophisticated as you are, and so they're like, well, what does a shelf corp even include? And so one of the things that we like to do is add the adjective fundable shelf corp, because you can get shelf corps cheap from a lot of places, but they're not really fundable. So our fundable shelf corps include, of course, the business plan. Why would we need that? Because lenders want to see that. So essentially, what we're doing is we're putting into a package what lenders would need to see for an approval. The analogy we used last week is you could either bake your own cookies or you could buy a chocolate chip cookie. Here, we've already baked the chocolate chip cookie. We're giving the client on a nice china plate a hot, fresh chocolate chip cookie. It's ready to go to funding. So is that the only way that they could get a chocolate chip cookie? Of course not. They could make their own, but this is quick, easy, fast, and free. So it includes the business plan, the financial projections, of course, the entity itself that's in the client's name, as I mentioned before, at the state and federal levels. We put trade lines on the Fundable Shelf Corp. It's the full deal. Why do we do all these things? So the business is fundable, right? Because we set up here, the key to getting business funding is to have a fundable business. So that's what we put into the chocolate chip cookie, into the Shelf Corp. And then again, hitting one more time on the sweet pay, the 0% financing. So we pitch and present no out-of-pocket cost, which is true with approved credit. We have about 40 different lenders that essentially are competing to provide financing to participants to pay for their shelf corp. Because remember, they have to pay for it, they receive it, we use it, and then the grant reimburses. There's steps in the process. But what do you do when someone does not get approved? That used to be a problem. Now it's not. Now we have the 0% sweet pay. No hard inquiries. It's actually a credit builder account. So it reports positive credit. It's great. Again, not the topic today. So with that being said, let's go ahead and now that we have some common understanding of what this is all about, it's about helping people get funding to start or grow a business and doing that through shelf corps, because that is faster, easier, quicker, cheaper than is building a business from scratch. And that's what the grant covers. So now we're into the 4 roles. So let's go into the 4 roles. So the first role is what we've been doing for quite some time, the grant coordinator. So again, 509pacific.org, real easy. Grant coordinator and reseller means the same. So let's go ahead and add that. We don't want people to get confused. So those two are the same. So no contract to sign, no money to pay. We get you set up, typically same day. You should be open in 15 minutes and you're ready to go help clients. And so in essence, what does a grant coordinator / reseller do? They educate on these topics and they enroll clients. And so they're technically selling a shelf corp to the client. So we provide the shelf corp, reseller sells the shelf corp to the client, sets their own pricing. So this is nothing new. This is what we've been doing all along. No changes to that. So I think we're probably all on the same page there. Okay, now let's go to the next. Team leader. And we've had this, but there's been some confusion. So we're going back because it's evolved. So let's clarify. What does it cost to be a team leader? Zero. So it's free as well. What you're doing as a team leader is managing a team of, I'm not sure why that spaced like that. Managing a team, oh, I see, it's because it's too long. You're managing a team of grant coordinators and resellers. So you're managing these people and you earn an override. And we've had separate trainings on this. The great news is the override is the same as what the reseller, the grant coordinator makes. So it's very lucrative. So as shown here, the grant coordinator / reseller makes $5,000 up front per shelf corp sold. The team leader makes the same as an override. The reseller / grant coordinator makes 5 points on the client's capital raise. The team leader makes the same. So the comp plan is the same for the reseller and the team leader. So that's pretty straightforward. I think it's really tough to decide or to not want to be a team leader, because invariably, even if it's not your primary focus, invariably you'll run into people on occasion that's looking to help people make money, and this allows you to monetize it. So how do you become a grant coordinator? You go to 509pacific.org, fill this out, hit send. How do you become a team leader? You need to be a grant coordinator reseller first, which was free, no money, no contract to sign. But then when you're wanting to add grant coordinators, resellers to your team, they're just going to simply put your name. So you have to be in our system first. And then by them putting their name in this box, as well as their name, email, and phone, then we're manually connecting them. We had a more sophisticated approach before. People didn't want sophisticated, so now it's real simple. Essentially, you drive people to 509pacific.org, they fill out the page, they mention your name, we'll manually set them up, and then that way we can report to you their production, and we can also get you the overrides. Very simple. So these two really haven't changed. So these are the two existing roles. We have two new roles to go through. So any questions on grant coordinator, reseller role, or team leader role? So how do you become a grant coordinator? 509pacific.org, fill this out. How do you become a team leader? Start adding grant coordinators, resellers on your team. They come fill this out. They put your name here, and as long as you're already in our system. So you have to start with this. So you have to be a grant coordinator, reseller, and then it's just as simple as just replicating the process. Crazy simple. Okay, so now let's get into, so that this was number one role. So there's 4 roles. This was number 2. So these are the ones that have been around. No changes. Now let's get into the 2 new roles that I think is going to intrigue many of you. And it's actually more important than what you may think, but we'll come back to that, the importance. So the next is funding director. So I was in Shreveport, Louisiana on Saturday, 2 days ago, and we're getting my daughter a new car at the Mercedes dealership in Shreveport, Louisiana. And so as I was there waiting to go through the sales process, I thought, well, this is a really good analogy to share with you all today. So if you went to go buy a car, you would deal with a salesperson to buy the car, and then you would go, so once you picked your car, then you would go into the finance department, the finance, sometimes called F&I department, and they handle the money side, whether you're paying cash or financing it. That's what we need to do a better job of, because I think some of you are merging these roles, and there's really separate training that's needed to be a funding director. So you're welcome to be a funding director, but don't think that you are without adding that role. So we want to kind of stay in our own lanes. We want to understand our role. So same with real estate, right? If you're a realtor, that's great. You're out helping people find properties, but you're not the mortgage loan officer. That's a different role. So what we're going to stop doing is trying to train our grant coordinators how to be involved with the funding. It's a separate role. So it's easy to become a grant coordinator, reseller. Come fill this out. If you want to be a funding director, we're setting up separate Zooms and separate training for that. And we'll actually come out. We will come to you to get you set up as a funding director. So it's a more advanced role, right? You have to have an office, and that office is going to have to pass credentialing standards because you're going to be dealing with sensitive financial information. So if you want to be a funding director, you have to start by being a grant coordinator. Everybody starts with the basic, but this is a new role. Some of you will be interested, some of you won't. But what's really important is we're not going to bog down our grant coordinators and resellers with funding director topics. So let's say that you're Darius and you refer in Corinthian. And so Darius is going to sell Corinthian a shelf corporation. He's going to educate her, and if it's the right decision, she's going to buy a shelf corporation from Darius. So that's enroll number one. Once that agreement has been signed, now we need to facilitate financing so Corinthian can pay Darius for it, just like the car, just like the real estate examples. That's going to be done differently. So Darius is not the funding director. We're going to have different people managing the financing side. So I think this has been something that we should have separated earlier on, because it's a different role, it's different training. So if you want to be a funding director, you're welcome to do so, but there's criteria that you have to meet. So anyone can be a grant coordinator, reseller, real easy, no criteria to meet. Just fill this out. We'll send you the implementation packet. You're open for business in 15 minutes. This is much more involved. So what that also means is that if all you are is a grant coordinator reseller, all you are you're a realtor or you're a car salesman, stay in your lane and let the funding directors take care of the funding side. Now you'll be paid, right? Just like the real estate agent is compensated from the transaction that the mortgage loan officer does. The car salesman generates compensation because of the financing that the F&I director does. So just separating these roles. We're spending way too much time and energy with our grant coordinators, resellers, who are asking a million questions about this, and they're not trained and they're not set up properly. So two things. If you want to be a funding director, then we need to get you set up properly. If not, don't worry about that. Other people will take care of that. Just do this. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, and then the fourth role is compliance. I didn't add a 4 there, did I? So compliance is a lot of what we learned from that legal seminar last Thursday and Friday with around 100 attorneys. So we had some of the top collection attorneys from across the country in a room, and we were exchanging best practices and learning new techniques. You might say, well, how does that fit in? Why does that matter? Well, remember, when we provide a fundable shelf corporation, one of those items that we provide is we provide 100,000 of collateral. Should have added that. So that's something that comes, it's not selling the client something, it's included with the shelf corp. So they get 100,000 of accounts receivables. That serves as collateral for their loan. That's very important. So if the client wants to liquidate the AR, the collateral, AR means accounts receivables, that is done by our compliance department. So this is a separate role. So I think there's almost a line that goes through here. Let's do a dotted line. I think many of you are going to be quite content to be grant coordinators or resellers and or team leaders. Both are done essentially easy, no contract, no cost. The more advanced roles would be the funding director role, where you need to have your own office and it has to be legitimate. We have to come out, we'll train you in person, we have to go through the credentialing, and then you're going to actually run the financing through your office. And that's why when we sell shelf corporations, the funding agreement is a separate agreement. It's a separate step, just like the real estate transaction with the realtor and the mortgage loan officer, just like the auto purchasing transaction, the difference between the salesman and the F&I director. So advanced roles, if you want to be a funding director, you'll let us know and we can set you up for that. If you want to be involved with compliance and making money from the liquidation of AR, you can do that. But these are advanced roles that we're not trying to recruit you into. They're not free. They're not easy. They're not well suited for dabblers. These are more important. I don't want to say that, but more, I was going to say more important, but I should, more advanced roles that not everyone's suited for. Before we can become 3 or 4, we need to be number 1 first and demonstrate that we can do that, because getting people into shelf corporations, helping them with their financial literacy and access to capital is at the core of what we do, right? We covered that. So before you come to us and say, oh yeah, I'd like to be a funding director, or I'd like to be in the compliance department, before that, make sure that you've demonstrated competency here, and then we can advance. All right, so with that being said, our normal resources and contact information, our phone number. So there's 2 different phone numbers, and people continue to get this confused. So we have our for-profit and then our nonprofit side. The for-profit number is 903-200-8781. The nonprofit number on the 509 Pacific website is different, 352-3390. So like Madison works over here at the nonprofit. Sometimes some of you will call the for-profit and say, hey, I need to talk to Madison. She's our internal funding coordinator. And they'll say, who? She didn't work here. Because she doesn't. It's 2 different companies, 2 different phone, 2 different offices, it's different. Now, if you are just looking for simple support, we recommend our support line, and this is text 903-347-8042. It says text. Some of you don't read that, and so then you're calling this number and you get all frustrated. Oh, no one answers that number. That's right, because it's the text line. If you want to talk to a live person during office hours, this number will be answered live. 903-200-8781 will be answered live Mondays through Fridays during office hours. We have 4 to 5 people there answering the phone, separate from bathroom breaks or lunch breaks, throughout the course of the day. So to talk, you call the phone number. To text, it's a different number. If you want to schedule, you can schedule using the Calendly link. Quick cash, not really the topic today, but it's here at the top of the page for folks that just simply want quick 10,000. That's the quick cash. We've covered how to become a reseller grant coordinator. It's right here. And then this is very important, because this is where you access the past trainings. So the past trainings takes a deep dive into, so you might say, well, what's quick cash? I don't understand it. Well, that's right. Go to the training. Or I need more training on how to be a grant coordinator reseller. Yes. The training's available on demand at no cost. All right. So with that being said, let's open it up. Maybe we'll put it on the 4 roles here so we can see that. And then let's start answering questions, comments, concerns that anyone has. All right. So Anthony's asking a good question that we brought up. So our primary purpose of these morning trainings going forward is going to be for the first 2 roles. We're going to have separate training, separate support, separate resources for 3 and 4. So we're just need to understand separate roles. You can or cannot participate in. It's up to you. But these are going to be supported in different times, different Zooms at different times. And if you qualify, you'll be invited to participate. Otherwise, don't be distracted by it. Thank you, Anthony. All right. Let's see. Looks like Eduardo's asking a question about the Sweet Pay. So again, we had a separate training or 2 last week on Sweet Pay, but Sweet Pay is great, because with Sweet Pay, we can help anyone get a shelf corporation. There's no minimum credit scores. There's guaranteed financing. We have a private lender that's doing that, 0% interest. It's a credit builder loan, so it's designed to report positive on their credit. It's not a layaway plan, so it's not like, oh, they have to make enough payments to pay the full amount of the Shelf Corp. Not at all. As long as they sign up, then we implement, and then they pay over time. So kind of a buy now, pay later. So if you're not familiar with Sweet Pay, I recommend going back to those trainings. And again, if we have a client, and that's what our funding directors will do. So as a grant coordinator, you don't need to worry about the dollars and cents. The less you talk about financing as a grant coordinator, the better. You're simply trying to get them into a shelf corp. Our funding directors will work with each client on what the right type of financing is for their circumstances. Maybe it's normal cash funding, maybe it's the sweet pay, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to this group about financing because that's too much. You don't need to know all those details. That's what our funding directors will deal with. Let's see. And Clinton brings up a good point. So sweet pay is great for clients that don't qualify for cash funding, that want a shelf corp, so no one gets turned away. But it's not a reimbursement account, it's a financing option, it's an alternative designed specifically for those that can't get cash funding. Clinton. All right. Kenny asked, what's the limit on the shelf corps? And that's where we mentioned here. I mean, there really isn't specifically a limit. It's what does the client want? The client needs to qualify for what they want. And so we can legally and ethically alter the shelf corp to qualify for whatever it is they want. But it's designed for a minimum of 100,000. There's really not a maximum, Kenny. Dara says, what if the person isn't credible for funding? Well, that's a great point. So let's go back to this, because one of the deliverables that's included is free credit assistance. And so you're right, Dara. Some people will come in and they've not managed their credit well, but that's not a barrier because we can still get them a shelf corp with no minimum credit score with a sweet pay. So they're still in the game. And then one of the deliverables is free credit assistance through our legal team to help them improve their personal credit. So I think the sooner that we all accept credit is not a barrier. Credit is not a barrier. There's no minimum credit scores to buy a shelf corp. And if they come to us and their credit is less than perfect, it's less than optimal, it's less than usable, not a problem. We anticipated that. So when we applied for this grant, the whole concept was, how can we help anyone qualify for a minimum of 100,000 of funding? So we put together the resources that's needed for that. So yes, do not worry about people with imperfect credit. They can still buy a shelf corp. We can still get it financed. They can still be successful. And the reason for that is two things. Not all lenders care about personal credit. And then secondly, we're going to help them improve their personal credit. It's part of the package. All right, let's see here. Michael's asking questions about comp. So that's right. So we covered, I think, pretty clearly what grant coordinators and team leaders make. They make the same, which is highlighted over here. Funding directors and our compliance team are paid differently. And if any of you should be interested in that, we can have that separate conversation. But until we've demonstrated competency with one, frankly, we're not qualified for 3 or 4. But it's more advanced roles, more income. However, we need to manage the basics first. Greg asked, do you have to be in the reseller marketing program to be a team leader? No, that used to be the case, and that's what I'm trying to clarify. So let's even put that on there. No longer need to enroll in RMP. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter, but Greg's been around a while, so he's asking a good question, but the answer is no. We've eliminated that. That's why this process is simpler. Natasha asks, if someone's looking at buying a home, does sweet pay affect that? No, because we're just reporting positive. There's no hard credit inquiries. Let's see. Questions about liquidating the AR. So that comes back to a lot of what we learned Thursday and Friday at that Creditors' Rights Conference in Houston. There are some really aggressive ways that we had not assimilated before, and I suspect some ways that you wouldn't even be aware of, that we can in fact expedite the collection of the AR. So they're very aggressive, but that is what our compliance team will be involved with. So again, My goal is to keep it simple for those of you that want simple. To be a grant coordinator, reseller, crazy simple. To be a team leader, very simple. These roles, not so simple. So I'm going to stop burdening these people with this training. We need to treat these people differently at a different time. All right, well, we ran a bit long. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Hopefully this was helpful. If there's anything specific that we didn't help you with, I'd recommend texting 903-347-8042. If you've missed any past trainings, I encourage you to view those. Have a great day, and let's finish the month strong. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.